Hi everybody, it's Marianne at Sew Right, and today I'm going to be sewing on a button with the machine, and I'm using the Husqvarna Viking Opal 690. There is a foot that's available for the machine that will hold the button in place while you're sewing it on, which is a really cool thing. One thing you want to do is you want to disconnect your feed dogs. So on this particular machine, I'm just going to push this lever over here. I'm going to push it over to the right, and now the feed dogs are disengaged. That's so that the feed dogs aren't pulling the fabric through as it's stitching on a button. I'm going to raise my lid so that I could see which stitch is going to be to sew on my button. And that's in the first menu, menu 1. And it's stitch number 33. So over here on my screen, I'm going to choose that stitch. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to go to, I'm in menu 1, and I'm going to choose stitch 33 and say OK. Look at all this information it's giving me. It's showing that we're not going to use a standard foot and that we're going to lower the feed dogs. See the line above the feed dogs? So, come back here. It's lower. It tells me to lower the feed dogs with that symbol. Over here, this is recommending that I use stabilizer underneath the fabric. Over here, this is something else that it's a button read that comes with the machine. But with that one, it's kind of iffy about where the needle is going to go through the holes in the button. With this foot, everything, all those kind of things are eliminated, so I don't have to pay attention to that button read. But I've disconnected the feed dogs, and I'm going to take off this foot, and I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to put on this foot. And on the back of the accessory foot comes a picture showing you what to do with putting the button into the foot. I'm going to put this foot on the machine, and I'm going to snap the bar that's on the foot right there. I'm going to snap it into this groove. So I'm going to position this, come on up here, and I snapped it in. And I talk about these like being cooking tongs. It's going to grab your meat, or this is going to grab your button. I'm going to take your button, and the foot comes with this tool, which is really cool. I'm going to put the prongs into the hole of the button, and it helps me to guide my button into the foot to place it just right. I'm going to take my fabric with my interfacing that you would always use on a garment. So if this is the outside of your garment, you've got your interfacing. This happens to be an iron-on, which I didn't iron it on right now, but that's not so important right now. You'd have your interfacing. Here'd be your facing underneath. And here goes the stabilizer. I'm going to put that underneath. Then you're going to decide where you want your button to be sewn on. You would mark it with probably chalk. And I'm going to give my foot a boost. So over here is where I raise and lower my presser foot. There is no lever here, so I'm just going to raise this up higher, and then I'm able to get this under here. And the button might have moved a tiny bit, so I'm just going to reposition it. I'm going to put my foot down, and before I start to push on the pedal on the floor, I'm going to test that the needle is going in both the holes. Because if it wasn't, then you'd have to reposition the button. This is the only thing I have ever been afraid to do. Once you sew on a button on a sewing machine, you'll be looking for all the buttons that have the holes on the top, not the shank underneath. So now I'm going to sew this on. And it's going to stop. And then after that, I'm going to raise the foot just a little bit with this foot. Even though it shows pushing it down, if I touch this, it just comes up a little bit. It hovers. And I'm going to pull the button forward and expose the other two holes. Put the foot down. Again, test it before you push on the pedal. And then you sew that one and wait for it to stop. Now, I'm going to say that I don't like putting the thread into the cutter after I put the bobbin in. I like to bring my thread to the surface. Reason being is when I go to start, come here, cut. When I go to start my next button, if if it cut the thread with the scissor cutter, the tail of the bobbin is inside here, and because of the height of the button and the foot, the top thread can't grab the bobbin. So I like to bring my thread to the surface for this particular technique. But I want to point out that this, if you looked at the inside of store-bought garments, you're going to see underneath a shank. It's thread that's wrapped around there. And right now I don't have that, which sometimes can make it difficult to put the button through the buttonhole. So I'm going to cut this one off and I'm going to start again. I'm going to do another, I'm going to sew it on again. I'm going to make a shank this time. The same process. You're going to have the interfacing, the stabilizer, but on the foot, there's a little lever right here on the side. And if I push this forward in the center here, you're going to see a stem come through. Right there. There's two stem. Well, it's one stem with two heights. How big of a shank do you want? Do you want a little shank or do you want a higher shank? I'm going to do the higher shank. So the one, if I want the low one, I go there. If I want a high shank, I do that. So now I'm going to place my fabric back under here, and I'm going to put the foot, and I can use my tool to grab my button, to place it in there. Come here. Holding my button, I'm going to place it into the foot. I'm working a little sideways, so let me see. There we go. Place it in. I'm going to lift this out. And you're going to check that your red lines are lined up with the holes of the button, just like I did before. But now we're going to make a shank. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to lower the foot and test. Oh, my needle is hitting my button. I'm going to raise it. I'm going to scoot that back a little. Put the foot down. 1 and 2. And it's going to stop. I still have to do the 2 holes in the back. I'm going to raise the foot just a little bit, and I'm going to scoot this forward, and I'm going to put my foot down again, and I'm going to test. Oh, my needle grabbed the button just a tiny bit. I'm going to move it back a little. 1 and 2. All right, now I can give it the gas. So this would be a high shank. That would be for a really bulky coat, not necessarily a blouse. But see how loose it is? Allowing me, when I pull the button forward, I have all that room to wrap my thread around to make a shank. Okay, I'm going to cut these 2 tails. I am going to make a shank though. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take the same thread that I used to sew it on. I'm going to grab a long piece and I'm going to wrap it around my button. I tightened it up, and then you just make a knot and then cut the thread real short under the button. So I'm going to make 1 knot. My second knot. Think about how much time I just saved sewing on a button. Take threads, cut. There's your button, sewn on with a shank. Cool, huh? Now look for all the buttons that have holes in the top so you don't have to hand sew it on with the other buttons. I'm joking. If you have to, you have to. Have a good day. Bye.